What took place? About half an hour after leaving for the hotel where his company's entrance ceremony was taking place, my grandson Keith returned home. His steps were heavy and slow, and his face was clouded. Nothing. Obviously, it's not nothing. Would you discuss it with your grandfather? Keith remained silent, but after I persisted, he eventually revealed what had transpired. The HR department reportedly changed the ceremony, scheduled a date before, and booked the hotel at the wrong time. That notification never reached Keith. They branded me recklessly and stated, "You probably just overslept and are lying about not getting the notice." My wife put a gentle hand on his back in an attempt to console him, but her hand abruptly froze. Her face became more and more pallid. I stepped behind Keith, wondering what was going on, and realizing at a way why. A piece of A4 paper was attached to his back. It made my blood boil to see it. "Don't be concerned. Grandpa will handle this. I am well aware of the culprit. He has the potential to bring down the entire business if we don't remove him from his position right away. I'm Howard Smith, and I'm 65. I served as president of a large snack manufacturer until I was 60 years old. Our specialty was rice snacks, but sales had been down for some time due to shifting trends. The company then recovered after we introduced a rice flour cookie that became quite popular. Because of that achievement, I was able to leave the company in the hands of a trusted team member and retire on my own terms instead of being evicted. I now live in peace with my wife and grandchild as chairman. I was thrilled when my grandson Keith said he wanted to work with us. He wanted to make kids happy the way he had been made to feel when he ate the delights we made. Our company's mission statement is ideally aligned with making a lot of kids smile. Hearing those comments from my cherished grandchild made me really happy. Keith successfully applied through the standard selection process since he wanted to rely just on his own abilities. On my behalf, I didn't provide any recommendations. During the recruiting process, nobody knew he was my grandson because we had the same last name, Smith. His big day, the company's admission ceremony, came today. "All right, Grandpa, I'm going. Be careful and have fun." Have fun during the entry ceremony? I'd only hope that my nervousness won't cause me to say something inappropriate. Wearing his brand new suit, which he was still getting used to, my wife and I bid him farewell. There would be a reception to welcome guests following the wedding. My wife and I had just begun talking about our lunch plans when we heard the door open. I'm back. Less than 30 minutes later, Keith was back. His steps were heavy, and his face was gloomy. What could possibly have caused Keith to appear so defeated? Anger shot through me. Out of pure fury, I nearly demanded an explanation, but I tried to remain composed and softened my tone as much as possible. What happened? Nothing. Obviously, it's not nothing. Can't you explain the situation to Grandpa? Keith remained silent for a long time, but when I kept asking him, he eventually told me the entire tale. From the station, I attempted to board the shuttle bus, but it never arrived. The station is a 5-minute walk from our house, and it takes roughly 10 minutes to drive to the hotel where the wedding was conducted. Keith arrived at the station 10 minutes before the planned pickup time because he had departed early. Because he had left early. But the bus never came, and there was not a single other new arrival to be seen. He called a couple new recruits with whom he had exchanged contact information since he felt something wasn't right, but nobody answered. After that, he called the business immediately and was confronted with the starting reality. HR had made a mistake and had rescheduled the ceremony the day before, as well as booked the hotel for the incorrect time. None of his colleagues could check their phones because everyone was already in the ceremony. Keith claimed he hadn't got any notification, but nobody took him seriously. So he therefore took a cab to the location. He told the door personnel what was going on, but they still wouldn't let him in. They didn't let you in. Why not? They said, "You probably overslept and are just pretending you didn't get the notice. and called me irresponsible. I was speechless. Such an unprofessional response was shocking. It wasn't about Keith. Calling someone irresponsible without hearing them out is simply unacceptable for any employee. So I guess it looks like I just skipped my own entrance ceremony. They must think I'm unreliable now. My wife gently placed a hand on his back to comfort him, but then her hand suddenly stopped. Her face grew paler and paler. Wondering what was going on, I moved behind Keith and immediately understood the reason. There, taped to his back, was a sheet of A4 paper. Seeing it made my anger boil over. What's wrong? Trying not to let him see, I carefully peeled the paper off. Scrawled across it were mocking words calling him useless. Grandpa's going to take care of this. Thank you, but really, you don't have to. I'd rather not have everyone know I'm your grandson. I'll prove myself starting tomorrow. This isn't just about you. If they treat one person like this, others will suffer too. Who did this? Keith stubbornly refused to tell me, but I have more experience in the workplace. I managed to persuade him and identified the employee who had made the harsh comment to Keith. With Keith in tow, I headed straight to the hotel where the ceremony was held. Well, look who's back, the rookie who missed his own ceremony. Standing in front of the entrance, a man sneered at Keith. Oh, you brought Grandpa along. Good for you. Beside him, a young woman mocked Keith as though she were talking to a child. Long time no see, Kevin. However, the moment I said that, the expression on Kevin's face, the head of human resources, froze. Why are you here? Kevin had always been problematic. He had excellent sales figures, but was notorious for his arrogance toward junior employees while constantly flattering his superiors. When I was CEO, no amount of pressure from other executives could make me let him lead a team. But after I retired, it seemed they'd promoted him. When I first heard his name and title from Keith, I was genuinely stunned. The woman beside him must have joined the company after I stepped down. She was whispering, "Who is this?" Clearly unaware of who I was. This young man is my grandson. Kevin, you'll let us in, won't you? Of course, I'll escort you both inside immediately. Kevin snapped to attention as if saluting and directed the young woman to guide Keith inside. So you were the one who sent Keith home, weren't you? My deepest apologies. I thought I had notified everyone, so I assumed he was just making excuses for being late. Even if it were an excuse, it's unacceptable to call a new employee irresponsible. On top of that, you're the head of HR. I'll be conducting an internal review, and disciplinary action may follow. Kevin's face went blank at my stern words. Sir, I don't always act this way. It's just that, well, my son was joining the company today, and I got carried away. Maybe a little overconfident. Oh, is that so? You don't want disciplinary action with your son joining, I take it. I placed my hands on his shoulders. Now tell me, who's that woman? From the handwriting on the paper taped to Keith's back, it seemed likely she was responsible. Judging by her behavior, I had little doubt it was her doing. She's my subordinate, Madison. And what's your relationship with her? Sweat began to pour down Kevin's face. Relationship. I'm not sure what you mean. Not a professional one. Clearly. How about it? You don't have to tell me, but if you don't, I'll have no choice but to start a formal investigation. Kevin finally gave in and confessed that he was involved in an adult relationship with her. So you've been divorced in the past 5 years then? Well, not exactly. It's more of an in-between status. In between. Which is it? At my insistence, Kevin admitted that he was still on good terms with his wife and had never even considered divorce despite seeing Madison on the side. Since you've been honest, I'll let you go for today. Thank you. I'll never forget this kindness. I left the event floor through one of the side doors, not to truly leave, of course. I circled back through the hotel's main floor and requested to speak with Keller, the general manager. If Kevin remains head of HR, the company's in serious trouble. I needed to secure evidence to remove him from his position. I could press further using his relationship with Madison as leverage, but that might allow him to make a comeback once things cooled down. So I contacted Michelle, my secretary, to probe from another angle while I persuaded Keller, the general manager, I knew to lend me a uniform. With it, I personally infiltrated the venue. The time had come for the reception. The ceremony hall had shifted to an adjacent room, and everyone, minus a few, seemed to be enjoying themselves. Hey, you're pretty bold eating here when you couldn't even make it on time. A young man who seemed to be a peer put his arm around Keith's shoulder. Kyle, one of the senior staff nearby, told me to eat up, so I think it'd be rude not to. Fair enough. Come over here then. Kyle walked Keith to a table and grabbed a chair from a line along the wall. I watched curiously as he set a large serving platter in front of Keith. Although the food was buffet style, Kyle had brought the entire platter. Eat it all. You're supposed to have a big appetite, right? I couldn't possibly eat all this. Besides, other people probably want some too. Don't like the sushi. I could swap it out for something else if you'd like. The man leaned in closer to Keith, who looked completely at a loss. Don't make a fuss, or I'll tell my dad. I think even someone like you can remember I'm the son of the head of HR, right? Resigned, Keith quietly began eating the sushi. I had to admit, Kevin's influence on his son was quite impressive. Spotting Kevin alone in a quieter moment, I approached him. Kevin, there's a message for you from the front desk. Dressed in uniform, I played the role of a hotel staff member. A message. Why would they leave a message at the desk when I've got my phone on me? They were very insistent on delivering it directly. From your Chairman Smith. It took Kevin a moment to realize that the staff member standing in front of him was actually me. Mr. Smith, I thought you'd already left. I remembered something I needed to take care of. Look over there. Kevin nearly fainted at the sight of his son forcing Keith to eat excessively. This is a welcome party for new employees. Has some common sense. It was surprising to hear Kevin even mention the word common sense. Stop that useless son of yours, but don't let on that he's my grandson. Understood. Kevin rushed across the room with determination. What do you think you're doing, Dad? I was just teaching this guy a lesson for getting too cocky. Disciplining employees is HR's job. You're a new hire yourself, so don't act like you're in charge. He had likely grown up being completely validated by his father. Kyle looked at Kevin with an expression of disbelief. Fine. You want me to stop, right? I'll stop. That's right. For the sake of my future, stop right now. Kevin had just felt relieved when Kyle deliberately tipped over a large platter of sushi onto the floor. Oops, looks like I slipped while trying to clean up. You can handle it. It seemed that Kyle had no intention of backing down. He tried to make Keith take care of it. Are you all right, sir? I approached Kyle from behind, maintaining my role as a staff member. Who are you? I'm with the venue staff. I'll take care of the food. Please continue enjoying yourselves. Keith noticed me and tried to assist, but I gestured subtly for him to hold back. I got down on my hands and knees on the fine carpet, picking up every last grain of rice. I'll help. Kevin, now flustered, began to follow my lead. Why are you helping? Let the hotel staff handle it. It's their job to cater to customers and do whatever we say. In a low voice, I leaned toward him. They say children learn by example. Do you treat restaurant staff like this too? Of course not. My son just can't stand it when things don't go his way. Kevin's hands were shaking, and he kept missing grains of rice. Ever since training, you've been overly idealistic and creepy. With a sneer, Kyle closed the distance between him and Keith, making Keith smile. You sound like some children's TV host. What's wrong with wanting to make kids smile? Isn't that how this company began? Now you're bringing the company into this. Have you lost your mind? Kevin's face quickly grew pale. It was only natural, considering it was as if his own son had confessed to wrongdoing. Armed with some fresh information I'd gotten from Michelle earlier, I turned to Kyle. Had you ever actually looked at your company's website? Kyle was taken aback by the sudden change in the hotel staff's demeanor. Who do you think you are, talking down to me like that? Our company spends a fortune here. I could have my dad stop doing business with this hotel. Then I'll make sure your father can't pull something like that. I stood up and grabbed Kyle's arm with my rice-covered hand. Gross. Let go. So this is how you educate your son. Letting him call his own company's chairman gross. I directed the question to Kevin, but he didn't respond. He was too preoccupied with quickly coming up with an excuse to protect himself, leaving no time to listen. What chairman? Seriously, does this hotel employ old men who can't even communicate properly? I figured it was about time, so I pulled up the image that had been sent to my phone. This is a record of a certain money transfer. Do you know what the money was for? Kyle glanced at the name on the transfer and seemed to realize immediately what it was about. I don't know. Then answer me this. What is our company's mission statement? It's a question we always ask in executive interviews. There's no way you wouldn't know. Kyle said nothing. He must have realized that saying the wrong thing would end everything for him. If you don't answer, I'll assume you don't know. I just forgot. That's all. Forgot? That's strange. I glanced over at Keith. You just said it yourself a moment ago, didn't you? To bring smiles to as many children as possible. That's our company's mission. I forced Kevin, still kneeling on the floor, to stand up. It seems your son doesn't know our mission statement. I wonder why. My son said something so impressive in the interview that the board couldn't help but be impressed. Even the other executives praised him. Let's say that's true. Then how do you explain this image? The next image I displayed was a series of messages. A conversation between Kevin and one of the executives, the same man associated with the money transfer. So, you paid $1,000 to make sure your son got hired. Huh. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my anger, but I couldn't hold it back. What was the head of HR thinking? You shameless disgrace. I'm so sorry. While everyone in the room watched us intently, one woman was trying to sneak out quietly. It was Madison. Madison, I have proof you were involved in this too. Don't even think about running. I couldn't go against Kevin. He threatened to spread my embarrassing photos if I didn't cooperate, she said in a frail voice, as if about to cry. It seemed she was trying to garner some sympathy, but Kyle wasn't having it. Hey Madison, you told me when I was still in college that you'd make sure I got hired because you liked my face. Don't pretend you weren't the one leading the charge, only to try and save yourself now. What? Madison? No way. I only dated Madison because I liked her face too. We both knew it was just for fun, so I didn't mind that she was still involved with my dad. That's all it was. Kevin was devastated, now fully aware that he and his son had been involved with the same woman. You remember that photo from my coming-of-age ceremony that you showed Madison? Turns out she liked it so much that she even waited for me at the university. I wish you hadn't shown it to her. This was beyond unbearable. I'll leave the three of you to deal with this yourselves. You'll have plenty of time to talk things over once you've left the company. Later, all three of them left the company officially as voluntary resignations. Although it was meant to keep things quiet, someone in HR who had a grudge against Kevin leaked the details of their departure to neighboring major firms. At every networking event attended by executives from various companies, I would hear, they applied here, but we turned them down. I couldn't shake a bad feeling about all of it. We should have done this from the start. Mr. Kennedy, please let the three of us back into the company. When I was suddenly summoned by President Kennedy, I arrived to find Kevin and the others there. Apparently, they hadn't been able to secure new jobs and had been lingering at the entrance, refusing to leave until they met with him. Kennedy, the current president, is neither my son nor a relative. My son went to college in Tokyo with dreams of starting his own business. Later, securing a job in the city, within a few years he branched out on his own and is now successfully managing his own company. Kennedy and I don't just lack a close relationship, we practically rival each other. The three of them probably thought turning to him would somehow work in their favor. While I prioritize bringing joy to children regardless of cost, Kennedy is a strict realist. We rarely see eye to eye on anything. Mr. Kennedy, aren't you and Mr. Smith like cats and dogs? If you let us back in, it'd be the ultimate way to get under his skin, don't you think? Madison, hoping to get closer to Kennedy, unbuttoned her shirt down to the third button and tried to make a move. Sure, we may not be on the best terms, but you know I'm a realist, right? Of course. I'm confident in my sales skills. Realistically, I'm a valuable asset, aren't I? It was only because I was in HR that things didn't work out. Put me in charge of sales this time. I'm a top-notch graduate from a prestigious university. Even as a new hire, I can deliver results right away. Let's get this old guy out of the company. Kennedy smiled slightly. They took his reaction as a sign they might be able to return to the company, watching him with hopeful faces. If it came down to choosing between you three or Mr. Smith, I'd have to go with him. After all, his grandson is crucial to this company. Just when they thought they were about to claw their way back up, they felt like they'd been pushed off a cliff and into despair. You're aware, aren't you? The rice flour cookies that helped revive our business. That was his idea. Just when I was starting to feel like I'd reached my limit, I asked Keith, what kind of sweets are trending lately? He told me, I'm really into rice flour treats, but I wish they were more affordable and easier to get. The cookies, inspired by his idea, became a hit, especially praised by parents of children with wheat allergies. With the product's success, we expanded it into a series, making it one of our flagship items. We needed someone with an eye for trends and a good sense of taste. Plus, having the founder's grandson join with the same passion as his grandfather provided a perfect backstory. If he creates another kit product, the media will be all over it. No way am I letting that kind of talent slip through my fingers. As for the three who were so quickly cut off, I decided to tell them what I hadn't had the chance to say before. You dragged me into your twisted web of relationships, and it distracted me for a moment. But listen, rice is a valuable raw material for our company. Neither people who would throw rice to the ground, nor their parents who raised them to be like that, have any place here. As the three remained frozen in place, Kennedy looked over at me with a glint of amusement. What? They threw rice on the ground? Wish I'd seen that. Please don't joke about things like that, even in jest. Kennedy has no use for social gatherings. He routinely avoids them, including company parties. Even at the annual orientation ceremony, he leaves as soon as he's done with his speech. Had he been present at that moment, things would have probably gotten even messier. I was grateful he hadn't been there. Curious about what happened to those three, later on I asked Michelle to look into it and found they were in an unexpected place. All three, even Madison, ended up working at Kevin's wife's company. Kevin's wife had taken over her father's construction business. Madison initially resisted working at the same company as her affair partner's wife, but she had leaned on Kevin from the start, barely doing any actual work. Since she couldn't find another man in power to rely on, she reluctantly agreed to stay on. Though they tried to keep their relationship secret, someone had tipped off Kevin's wife, knowing everything. She hired them anyway, intending to teach her husband and his lover a lesson, and to re-educate her son. She put them to work, not in the office, but out in the field. It was clear that none of the three were cut out for manual labor. When Kennedy heard the story, He went to the construction site to capture the scene on video, amused as they were repeatedly yelled at by a supervisor. I can only hope that this experience reminded them of a childhood lesson, to never do to others what you wouldn't want done to yourself. So, Keith, are you enjoying working at the company? About 6 months had passed since he joined the company. I had heard something from Kennedy, so I brought it up with Keith over dinner. Well, actually, there's a project I'm working on that might get approved soon. I can't share details yet, but if it goes through, I'll buy some for you, Grandpa. Is that so? I'll be looking forward to it. In truth, I already knew all about the project, but I pretended not to, wanting to see the joy on his face. Keith is working on developing a modern version of rice crackers, aiming to release a product that represents our style. He plans to launch a spiced version geared toward adults to first capture the attention of parents, eventually expanding the line to include products for children. Kennedy gave it his strong approval, saying it was sure to be a hit, considering it sounded like a moneymaker. I'll protect this company that Grandpa started from a humble candy store. Hearing such words from my promising grandson, my wife, and I felt determined to stay around for as long as possible. Miles, my boss, scowled and said something really ridiculous as I stood at the front desk of the opulent hotel, trying to make sense of the situation. The inn was tucked up in the mountains, so even though summer was almost here, it was still chilly outside. I began to feel as though my future was slipping away, and a wave of fear swept over me. Since Miles offered to plan this business trip, I've had a horrible feeling, but I may have relaxed because I assumed that since I made the reservation, everything would be all right. All of the reservations I had made under my name had somehow been canceled when I went to the front desk to confirm our reservation when I arrived at the inn. Miles gently pushed me aside and finished the check-in procedure for everyone while I frantically tried to figure out what had gone wrong. That's when I recognized my negative emotion had materialized. Everyone received room keys from Miles, but when it was my turn, he said I wouldn't have a room. Miles made a big show of forgetting my room, but he showed no signs of concern. But he had no idea that when he found out who I really was, this stunt would backfire. Miles was astonished beyond belief, but I was even more taken aback by his true nature. I'm 42 years old, and my name is David Wilson. My parents separated when I was a little child, and my grandparents reared me at my father's house. I never felt deprived even though we relocated from the city to a rural location. I never quite fit in at my new school though, and a lot of my students made fun of me for my unusual living arrangement. Nothing changed, not even in high school, and I had to skip school a lot because of people's critical looks. However, my grandparents were always nice and encouraging, and they never voiced any complaints. I vividly recall their support when I made the decision to leave high school. Now that they are both dead, I am 42 years old, surrounded by my new family, and we have a contented life together. Naturally, I want to love my kids as much as my grandparents loved me. Whatever occurs, I will keep a loving and compassionate eye over them. In order to avoid burdening my grandparents after high school, I began working part-time at construction sites. I worked for a few years before the contracting company's president, Mr. Michael Yates, noticed me and gave me a full-time job. He gave a high school dropout like me an opportunity, and for that I will always be grateful. I was promoted to sales manager after closing numerous deals as a salesperson. There have even been recent whispers that I could be promoted to head of the department. However, they chose to appoint an external applicant for the role in keeping with Mr. Yates's goal of introducing new ideas to the business. I had great expectations and trusted Mr. Yates's judgment, but the person who arrived exceeded my expectations. As of right now, I am Miles, your new department head. You jerks should be grateful that I'm even letting you work for me, he continued. Miles, the new head of the department, had been hired as a career employee from a large factory. His powerful presence and aggressive manner made everyone uncomfortable right away. Mr. Yates had stated in his introduction that Miles had been a very good sales manager at his prior position. Even if it were the case, his contemptuous attitude and treatment of us as disposable tools led to instant animosity among the department. As a manager, I tried to talk to Miles, hoping to create a better work environment for the team. Miles, we have many talented employees here. Could you please acknowledge that and treat them with the respect they deserve? I asked. You should be grateful to be working under me. None of that matters. By the way, where did you go to college? He brushed off my concerns and suddenly hit me with a question I wasn't expecting. Unsure but honest, I answered. I dropped out of high school. Hearing that, Miles let out a slight snort, leaning back in his chair with a smirk. Well, that explains why you talk about such insignificant things. Low education means low value, he said, placing great importance on academic credentials. He probably boasted about having graduated from a prestigious university, completely dismissing anything I had to say. After enduring his endless bragging, I was eventually kicked out of his office, as though I were a nuisance. From the next day on, my new nickname became the Dropout. Miles seemed to find pleasure in mocking my lack of education, even publicly ridiculing me in meetings attended by all department managers and above. Until Miles showed up, no one at the company had ever judged me based on my education. Everyone evaluated me based on my work ethic and results. That's why, despite my background, I was able to focus on my job, and even now, there are far more people in the company rooting for me than for Miles. Jealous of my growing success, Miles began to find amusement in harassing me. He shoved all the tedious, time-consuming tasks onto me, and before I knew it, my desk was buried under an ever-growing pile of paperwork. The stack of documents on my desk was so high it looked like it could collapse at any moment. You're supposed to be competent, right? A high school dropout should at least be able to handle these easy tasks. Don't you think? Miles taunted. On top of that, Miles even dumped his own work on me, which left me with no time for my actual responsibilities, causing me to make simple mistakes, like missing deadlines. See, a dropout can't even handle the easy stuff, he would say with a smug grin before throwing more snide comments and heading out of the office right on time, leaving me to work late into the night. It wasn't unusual for me to get home after midnight due to all the overtime. Exhausted and sleep-deprived, I was starting to become mentally unstable. Miles always acted arrogantly in front of me. However, I often caught him sucking up to the high-ups and executives, and each time, it seemed like he was spreading rumors that I was incompetent. I figured that denying the rumors would just sound like excuses, so I focused on proving myself through my work. After a few weeks, the harassment stopped, and I could finally handle my workload without issues. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was the calm before the storm. Sure enough, I soon heard that Miles was in charge of this year's company trip. It seemed he had volunteered in an attempt to curry favor with the executives. A few days later, when he still hadn't come up with a travel plan, Miles suddenly demanded that we, the employees, come up with ideas. His unreasonable order left the entire department silent. Frustrated, Miles began shouting angrily. Doesn't anyone know of a good place? What a bunch of useless, low-educated idiots. His temper worsened by the day, and soon his frustration was directed squarely at me. Hey, dropout, you've had an easy life with nothing to do, so surely you know of a nice place, right? Well, I'm not good at anything besides work. Miles clicked his tongue loudly and stormed off, his footsteps heavy. Although I had a suggestion in mind, I hesitated, worried that it might cause trouble for the inn, so I kept quiet. As the days passed, Miles still couldn't make a decision. His mood grew even darker. If we're going on a company trip, I know a luxury inn in the neighboring prefecture that offers good rates, but I'm not keen on recommending it. One day, while I was muttering to myself in the break room, Miles suddenly appeared out of nowhere and spoke up. The luxury inn you mentioned, are you talking about this one? He waved a brochure for the inn in front of me, his grin whitening as he stepped closer. If you've got connections to get a good rate at this inn, then you'd better make the reservation. The inn Miles referred to was indeed the one I didn't want to recommend, but the budget we had wouldn't cover accommodations for everyone, no matter how I crunched the numbers. There was a way to make it work within the budget, but I worried that Miles' behavior might cause problems for the inn. I tried to act like I'd forgotten, but Miles pestered me daily to make the reservation. Hey, you made the reservation, right? Worn down by Miles' persistence, I reluctantly made the reservation for the whole group. Yes, I've made the reservation. I also received the cost estimate and some guidelines from the inn, so please review them. I handed him the documents from the inn, and Miles snatched them from me with a sly grin. I wasn't sure what he was planning, but since I had made the reservation myself, I figured it would be fine. Miles quickly started organizing the trip, but as he left, I had a feeling he was smirking at me. When I turned around, I caught Miles giving me a sideways glance, shooing me away like I was a nuisance. A cold chill ran down my spine, and an unsettling sense of fear gripped me. I couldn't stop shaking. On the day of the trip, Miles was confidently taking charge from the start. However, the sightseeing spots he had chosen were unimpressive, and the reactions from the group were lukewarm at best. Sensing the underwhelming mood, Miles suddenly pinned the blame on me. We went to the places suggested by a dropout, and they were all mediocre and half-baked. Frustration building, Miles went out of his way to paint me as the bad guy. I knew I should never listen to a dropout's advice. But don't worry, everyone, I chose the inn, so you're in good hands. That's not true. Miles picked the sightseeing spots, but I had arranged the inn, I protested. Complaining wouldn't do any good, so I kept silent. Cold stares were directed at me. When we arrived at the inn and I tried to check in, I was told there was no reservation under my name. The receptionist, clearly flustered, double-checked the booking ledger, only to find that all the reservations I had made had been canceled. As I frantically kept asking for confirmation, Miles stepped in with a smug smile and shoved me aside. The reservation is under Miles. The receptionist, relieved that Miles's name was on the reservation, processed it, but something still felt off. Miles then began handing out room keys to everyone, but one key was missing. This isn't everyone, right? Where's my room? I asked, confused. Miles smirked and mockingly fed me pity. Oh, right. Sorry about that, but I forgot to reserve a room for the high school dropout. What do you mean? When I checked with the receptionist, it turned out that the reservation had been changed a week ago, just in time to avoid any cancellation fees. Apparently, after I had secured the reservation, Miles had rebooked it under his name and deliberately reduced the number of rooms. If I don't have a room, what am I supposed to do? Though summer was approaching, the mountain air around the inn was still cold. As I panicked, Miles placed a hand on my shoulder and said something nonsensical, clearly mocking me. Drop out? Sleep outside? It suits your low education, doesn't it? The reception staff were also visibly alarmed by Miles's bizarre behavior, but given that this was a popular luxury inn, it was already fully booked. There was no way to free up another room at the last minute. My shoulders slumped, and a sense of hopelessness washed over me. The receptionist, now pale and panicking, scrambled to handle the sudden situation. However, I couldn't shake the bad feeling I had. As I had suspected, something like this might happen all along. Completely fed up with Miles's scheming, I took a deep breath and began to gather my belongings. Understood, but don't regret this later. Ha, what's there to regret about one dropout not staying with us? Miles grinned smugly. Without another word, I turned my back on him and calmly walked out of the inn. The next morning, after enjoying a peaceful night elsewhere, I was awakened by the ringing of my phone. The call cut off just as I was about to answer. But when I checked my phone, I was shocked to see 100 missed calls from Miles. I must have slept deeply after the exhausting events of the previous day. Curious, I called him back, only to hear Miles's frantic, relieved voice. Finally, I got through. Now we can fix this all. All of Miles's usual arrogance was gone. Still half asleep, I casually asked what the issue was. What's the matter this early in the morning? What do you mean, what's the matter? You must have done something. Take responsibility. Miles was furious, shouting accusations, but I remained calm. I told you yesterday not to regret it. My response only seemed to enrage Miles further. His voice rising again, he shouted, "So you did do something. You've ruined my perfect plan. What are you going to do about it?" I didn't do anything that can't be fixed now. My reputation is ruined. Apparently, Miles' so-called perfect plan had completely unraveled, and he and the other employees had endured a terrible night. First, the luxury inn's highly anticipated gourmet dinner never arrived, and everyone had to buy their own food from a nearby convenience store. Meanwhile, I had spent a relaxing night at a nearby hot spring facility. Miles had been trying to call me all night, but I slept through it, unaware of the chaos. That explained all the missed calls. To make matters worse, the breakfast buffet, which was supposed to feature local delicacies, wasn't served either. Miles was being blamed for everything. Frustrated that I hadn't answered any of his calls, Miles had kept calling until morning, finally getting through to me. Miles kept blaming me relentlessly, refusing to listen to a word I said once. He had exhausted himself with complaints. I calmly explained the details I had already provided, along with the estimate. I believe the note I gave you mentioned that if the reservation was made under a name other than mine, the standard rates would apply. What's that paper? Oh, that one. But who actually reads that stuff? I did remind you to go over it carefully, didn't I? I said. The reservation had been made at a special discount through my connections. However, it was clearly stated that if the booking was made under a different name, the budget would only cover basic accommodations without meals. Despite this, Miles, still refusing to accept the situation, kept blaming me. But nothing about the situation was going to change. Through the phone, I could hear Miles' raised voice along with the sound of executives and employees berating him in the background. At some point, I even heard Miles, with no choice left, apologizing profusely, bowing his head to those around him. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just come here right now." His voice trembled with panic. Miles hung up the phone before I could respond. When I reluctantly returned to the inn, I saw Miles sitting uncomfortably on his knees, surrounded by a crowd at the front desk. "Good morning. Sorry to keep you waiting." "You? Why didn't you answer my calls? Where were you and what were you doing last night?" Miles suddenly jumped up from his kneeling position, but his legs had fallen asleep, and he immediately collapsed. Still, he glared at me with a furious expression, as if ready to pounce at any moment. The sight of Miles, pitiful and ridiculous, drew soft laughter from those around us. Blushing from embarrassment and clearly flustered, Miles grew more erratic, and I felt a bit sorry for him as I began explaining how I had spent the previous night. I stayed at a nearby campground. "A campground? Where the hell is that?" "It's about a 20-minute walk from here. There's a hot spring nearby, and you can rent camping gear, so you don't need to bring anything." Intrigued by the unexpected answer, some of the employees gathered around me, and the conversation shifted to the campground, creating a bit of excitement. But Miles wasn't having it. "That's not the point. Why wasn't there any food served? You must have sabotaged everything out of jealousy because I'm more educated than you." Miles's angry shouts echoed through the lobby. Just then, the inn's manager, dressed impeccably in a suit, approached with a look of exasperation on her face. "I'm Emma, the owner of this inn." "Miles, was it? You can't speak like that to the owner of the inn." Miles was dumbfounded by her words. With a sigh, Emma stepped aside, allowing me to speak. I am the owner of this inn. What? How? What are you talking about? This makes no sense. Still yelling angrily, Miles refused to listen as usual. I had had enough. Emma snapped at him. Miles, we clearly informed you when you rebooked the reservation. We told you that with your budget, it would only cover accommodations without meals. You agreed to that. Miles, now pale and sweating profusely, muttered excuses while looking down at the floor. I'd remember something being said during the booking, but I didn't really understand it, so this isn't my fault. It's the... At this point, Mr. Yates, who had been standing nearby with his arms crossed, finally spoke up, exasperated. I've heard enough. Cut it out already. Mr. Yates, no. You see, this is all a misunderstanding. It's not my fault. Miles frantically tried to justify himself to Mr. Yates, but his desperate excuses only made Mr. Yates sigh heavily and shake his head. I began to suspect how poorly thought out Miles's plans were during yesterday's sightseeing, but I never imagined he was this careless. Mr. Yates then bowed deeply to Emma to apologize before turning to glare coldly at Miles. Miles, meeting Mr. Yates's eyes, collapsed to the floor, curling up and crying like a child. Looking down at the pitiful Miles, I'd explained why I was the owner of the luxury inn. This inn was built on the mountain property my grandparents owned. For years, they had struggled with managing the land that had been passed down through generations, so I suggested building an inn at the location, which was already famous for its hot springs. My grandfather, a hot spring enthusiast, loved the idea and decided to open the inn as a retirement project, following my advice. Running the inn wasn't easy for my grandparents in their old age. That's when I decided to entrust Emma, an old acquaintance who had always cared for me like her own child, with the role of the inn manager. After my grandparents passed away, I inherited the mountain property and with it became the owner of the luxury inn. Under Emma's skillful management, the inn's reputation steadily grew, and before long, it became a popular high-end destination. Even now, many guests from all over the country visit to enjoy the secluded hot springs and locally sourced cuisine. It's become so popular that reservations are notoriously difficult to secure. By the way, the campground I mentioned earlier was something my grandfather started as a hobby. Growing up with the mountains as my playground, I would often escape to the campground whenever I had free time to enjoy some peace and solitude. Of course, the management is handled by acquaintances, so I don't have to get involved directly. I had only thought of the campsite as a backup plan, but I never imagined I'd actually be left out and have to use it. Despite repeatedly telling Miles to review the terms, he ignored them and dragged everyone into this mess. There was nothing left to say when Miles finally realized that I was the owner of the inn. His jaw dropped in shock, eyes wide as he stared at me. After a few seconds of stunned silence, Miles' expression shifted and suddenly he lashed out at me. This is all your fault. Everyone's upset, so you should fix this. Stop making it sound like I'm the only one to blame. His irrational outburst made everyone around him sigh heavily. Emma, clearly irritated, shot Miles an icy glare and spoke sharply. You were the one who changed the reservation, weren't you? We were willing to give you a discount as a favor to Mr. Wilson here. I'm his boss, and we're not going to go out of our way to treat someone who disrespects Mr. Wilson with kindness. Miles, overwhelmed by Emma's sharp words, turned pale and began trembling in fear, falling silent. Seeing him reduced to a quivering mess, the employees couldn't hold back their laughter, pointing at Miles as they mocked him. Just then, a young woman who worked at the inn as a maid approached, looking surprised. Dad, what are you doing here? Wait, Rachel, is this the troublesome dad you mentioned before? The young woman who had called Miles' dad was Rachel, a maid working at the inn. To my surprise, Rachel turned out to be his daughter. Startled by this sudden revelation, Miles quickly straightened his posture and averted his gaze, pretending not to know her. Dad? No, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not your father. You wouldn't want your daughter to see you in such an embarrassing situation, would you? I muttered. At that, Miles suddenly stood up and rushed toward me, clearly agitated. I told you, I'm not her father. Miles, calm down, I said. His blatant behavior was becoming more and more uncomfortable to watch. Come to think of it, I suddenly remembered something. Ever since the company trip was first mentioned, Miles had been holding onto a brochure for this inn. Could it be that Miles had wanted to come here from the start just to see his daughter? That suspicion quickly turned into certainty. Could it be that you wanted to come here because your daughter works at this inn? Stop it. Don't say unnecessary things. And now that you mention it, you were unusually enthusiastic about this trip, Miles. Now red-faced with embarrassment, Miles desperately tried to shut me up, but his efforts were clumsy and ineffective. Mr. Yates, who had been silently observing Miles's actions, gently placed a hand on his shoulder and nodded as if he understood everything. Miles' face scrunched up with shame. He curled up and muttered to himself, clearly at a loss, unable to keep his composure. Emma stifled a laugh as she addressed Miles, trying to impress your daughter. Maybe you should start by listening to what people have to say. Rachel seemed to realize from the situation that Miles had caused trouble by going overboard, her face turning red and tears welling up. She bowed deeply to us, clearly embarrassed by her father's actions. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. My father always tries to show off in front of others, but he always ends up failing like this, she said. As Rachel spoke, clearly embarrassed, we all nodded in understanding. It made sense. If someone like Miles, who never listens and always acts unilaterally, was your father, you'd have your fair share of embarrassing stories. Miles tried to stop his daughter from apologizing, but Rachel glared at him with tears in her eyes. I thought I'd finally gotten away from you. You're the worst. With those words, Rachel looked down and began to cry. When we asked for more details, we learned that Rachel had started working at the inn to escape from her father. As much as I had been annoyed by Miles, I couldn't help but feel a little sympathy when I realized that this trip was his desperate attempt to see his daughter, even if only as a guest. Miles, now more dejected than I had ever seen him, collapsed onto the floor, utterly defeated. Feeling a bit sorry for him, I decided to offer a small compliment. You know, your father just tried a little too hard today. Besides, isn't he supposed to be highly educated and a very capable man? Rachel looked surprised at my words, but then, as she revealed the truth, we all exchanged bewildered glances, stunned by what she said next. That's not true. My father's just a show-off. Half of what he says about his education is practically a lie. According to Rachel, while Miles did graduate from a prestigious university, it took him 3 attempts to get in. Even then, he struggled to pass his courses, repeating several years. In fact, it took him over 5 years of repeated failures before he barely managed to graduate. We were all left speechless, our mouths agape as we learned the truth about Miles's so-called prestigious education that he had been so proud of. Miles had always been a firm believer in academic superiority, constantly belittling me for being a high school dropout. But after learning about his rather unfortunate and wasted 20s, I found myself at a loss for words. Miles, now realizing that his secret was out, covered his face, his ears turning bright red with shame as he curled up even smaller. Shortly after we returned from the company trip, Mr. Yates investigated Miles' past. It turned out that much of Miles' resume was exaggerated, if not outright false. At his previous company, Miles had also championed academic superiority, but in reality, he had advanced by taking credit for others' achievements and presenting them as his own. He repeated this pattern at every job. At the major manufacturer where he last worked, his brief stint as sales department head was considered a dark chapter in the company's history. His tenure there lasted only about 3 months before his true nature was revealed, and he was swiftly fired. Upon discovering Miles's true nature, Mr. Yates considered firing him, fearing that his presence could harm the company's performance. But out of mercy and hope for his reformation, he decided instead to demote him to a regular employee. No longer a department head, Miles became a pariah, treated as an outcast by his peers. With Miles demoted, my colleague recommended me for the position, and I was promoted to department head. While I felt embarrassed by the promotion, I also felt a strong sense of responsibility to live up to my team's expectations. As for Miles, now just a regular employee, he continued to carry himself arrogantly, but was utterly incompetent. In fact, he was more of a burden than anything, contributing nothing of value to the team. It was shocking how truly incapable he was. As I struggled with how to handle the situation, I thought of Rachel. I decided, as a last-ditch effort, to ask her if Miles had any strengths or hidden talents. What she told me was completely unexpected. "I'm so sorry, my father's so useless, but when it comes to the outdoors, he's surprisingly capable. In fact, he's really good at it." According to Rachel, the reason Miles kept failing in college was his passion for camping. He was such an avid camper that he spent most of the year at campsites, and even now, he still goes out camping from time to time. As a fellow camper, this piqued my interest. At the same time, I remembered a project I had been struggling with for some time. It was a request to find a way to repurpose an abandoned school in a rural area. The plan was to remodel the school into a campsite and lodging facility, but the project had stalled because we couldn't find a suitable manager. That's when I thought of Miles for the role. The following year, the remodeled campsite, built from the old school, was completed. I decided to have Miles work there as the facilities manager. To everyone's surprise, the facility quickly became a hit, with Miles's outdoor workshops becoming especially popular. His extensive knowledge and experience in the outdoors, something he proudly claims to be unmatched, proved true. Miles's survival skills, many of which even I didn't know, became widely talked about for their potential use in disaster relief situations, attracting media attention and even TV interviews. For the first time in his life, Miles, now frequently relied upon by others, was moved to tears, saying he had never felt so valued. Rachel, drawing on her experience as a maid at the inn, also began helping manage the facility alongside her father. While Miles was eager to show his daughter how capable he was, it seemed that Rachel kept a close eye on him to ensure he didn't get carried away. Life is full of surprises, and we never know when or where our past experiences will come in handy. These days, I find myself envying Miles for possessing something beyond academic achievements. As for me, I plan to focus on preserving the nature my grandparents left behind and think about what legacy I can pass on to the next generation. Do you know what it means to live within your means? Well, hold on. Perhaps that is too much for you. Be thankful that you were let to participate at all. Perhaps you could butter up people and pour drinks if there are no seats. Mary, the ostentatious woman, appeared content after saying her piece and strode out to join the wider group. I couldn't help but notice the woman at the corner table, looking down with her shoulders trembling a little, even if I could only make out fragments of what she was saying. "Hey, how are you?" "Have you heard anything?" she said. "You're seated all the way back here. But why?" "No, everything is all right. I suppose things are simply different in the large organization. Evidently, there isn't a seat available for someone like me, a recent high school graduate." I made up my mind and walked from the banquet hall's edge toward the packed stage area where everyone had congregated, gently placing a handkerchief in her hand. It was there that I revealed a shocking fact that would startle Mary. Clank, a break at last. But really, the selection of this vending machine is the same as it was 10 years ago. These days, this coffee is hard to find. Samuel Yates is my name. I started working for this company as soon as I graduated from college, but I was transferred to a branch office almost immediately. And ever then, I've been moved about among related companies. I finally made it back to the main office after 10 years. I work in the company's most prestigious division, product development, at the moment. The rigorous workload doesn't bother me, but this sweetened bottled coffee is really harsh. I apologize. Was that heard by all? But following the latest health trends. Old man, you might want to investigate that. You really got lucky to land here, don't you? Mary is her name. Fluent in several languages and a graduate of a prestigious university, she is considered an elite. She virtually exudes confidence with her flawless makeup, chicly curled hair, and form-fitting clothing. This is how Mary usually addresses me, but I'm not her real goal. Good morning, Samuel. Good morning, Michelle. Whoa, you're carrying a lot today. Michelle is the one balancing multiple shopping bags. She works hard, is kind-hearted, and never fails to smile. As a leader in the sector, the company is fiercely competitive, even though it theoretically only recruits high school graduates. Having gotten past that, I have a lot of respect for Michelle, who is more than 10 years my junior. Hey, I recently received these as mementos from a lovely cleaning lady and friend who traveled. I considered showing them to everyone working at the main desk. Hey, can you not? Oh. The office fell silent as Mary, who was enjoying a luxury smoothie, interrupted the kind greeting. She purposefully made everyone silent. You don't understand. Can you ensure that nobody here has allergies? The souvenirs are completely out of date. Furthermore, it would be like to stating, here, I picked these up off the street, to claim that you obtained them from a cleaning lady. And what are they, really? Some sugary dumplings that seem cheap. So uninteresting. I'm sorry. Good, as long as you get it. Oh, high school grad, be careful. Keep this up, and you'll end up just like the guy next to you. A second-rate college grad is no different, after all. She shot a smug glance around the office as if declaring her opinion was everyone's consensus and walked back to her desk with a laugh. Yes, Mary's real target is Michelle. She constantly brings up the fact that Michelle only has a high school diploma. With Mary at the top of our department, others follow her lead. That's the reality here. In some ways, my arrival may have made things worse. I felt a bit guilty about it, even if only for a short time. Michelle, mind if I take 2 boxes? Oh, guest, 2 boxes. I took the bags of souvenirs from her and placed the boxes on the central desk. Both Michelle and Mary looked on in shock. These are souvenirs Michelle received, and she'd like to share them with the department, so I'm setting them out here. Hey, old man, I told you to cut it out, didn't I? These are from some random cleaning lady. People. Oh, I didn't explain properly. The friend Michelle mentioned is Amanda, who used to be the CEO's secretary here. She recently joined the cleaning team after her kids became independent. No way. I chat with her often, so I'm not making this up. And let me tell you, former executive secretaries have an incredible eye for quality gifts. We have Michelle to thank for this. Grab one while they last. I took one for myself and returned to my desk. Behind me, I could hear the lively sounds of everyone rushing to get one. Samuel, sorry for acting on my own. Oh, and I already took one of these for myself. Took one? Samuel, you've already started eating it. Oh, busted. I really like these, but this seems not good anyway. Despite being told countless times to act with more authority, I knew this was where I fell short. I sighed and was about to take a sip of coffee. Michelle covered her mouth, trying to stifle a laugh, but ended up letting it out anyway, looking a bit apologetic. Sorry. Haha. I wanted to thank you, but you're just too funny, Samuel. Oh, that reminds me. The sadness from earlier was gone, and Michelle was back to her usual smiling self. Did I help even a little? To thank you, I'll bring you a homemade lunch tomorrow. You always seem busy, and I mostly see you with coffee. Would that be okay? Lunch? I can't remember the last time I had rice. I'll definitely bring one. The next day, Michelle actually brought a homemade lunch, which meant we'd be eating side by side. I couldn't help but worry about what Mary might say if she saw us. But Mary, claiming something about a limited edition lunch, left early, leaving just the two of us in the office. Thank you again for yesterday. Here, enjoy. Wow, making something like this every day is impressive. I feel a bit guilty. I put in extra effort today as a thank you. I'm pretty confident in my cooking. How does it taste? It's delicious. Yay. My mom was often sick, so I cooked for my siblings from a young age. It feels great to be complimented by someone outside my family. I see that must be why she chose to work right after high school. Thinking about what she'd been through, I found myself admiring Michelle as a truly wonderful person. From that day on, Michelle started bringing me lunch regularly. I tried to insist that she didn't have to, but she said making 2 lunches was no more trouble than 1. Honestly, I was happy about it. Her cooking lunch gave me the strength to get through my hectic days, but most of all, I truly enjoyed spending time with Michelle, who made the age gap between us feel insignificant. In fact, even when I did notice the age difference, it was in a way that made our time together even more enjoyable. One day, Mary passed by but ignored us without her usual jabs. Thinking back, ever since the souvenir incident, Mary's snide remarks toward Michelle had virtually stopped. Samuel, have you prepared for the meeting today? Haha. Note this. Michelle pulled up an IN's homepage on her computer. She'd bookmarked it, clearly excited. Oh right, that's next week. I'd almost forgotten. But it's the company retreat. It should be fun. Yes, and thanks for lunch. The company retreat was a 2-night, 3-day trip booked at a particularly nice inn. Right now, we were in the middle of a banquet there. I arrived a bit late, but as soon as I entered the banquet hall, my coworkers called me over to join them. It seemed like some of them wanted to talk since that incident with the souvenirs. Perhaps thanks to the alcohol, everyone was lively, and I thought that if I could build these connections, Michelle might find her work more enjoyable too. But Michelle was nowhere to be seen, and neither was Mary, who would normally be in the center of the crowd at a place like this. I had a bad feeling. Have you seen Michelle and Mary? Now that you mention it, they're not here. There are people from other departments, so I'm not sure. I think I saw them before the banquet, though. I cut the conversation short and decided to search for Michelle. There were so many people around, calling out her name wasn't an option. She might be chatting with friends from another department. If that's the case, that's fine, but I felt a strong need to find her. She was nowhere to be found. I raised my gaze to the far end of the hall. No way. My worst fears had come true. There, at the very edge of an unassigned table, Michelle was standing with her head down while Mary leaned over her, saying something I couldn't care less about. Do you even understand what living within your means means? Oh, right. Maybe that's too advanced for someone like you. Just be grateful you were allowed to join. No seat then. Why don't you pour drinks and flatter people? What's going on here? Oh, well, if it isn't Mr. Oldtimer. I thought you weren't coming. Don't worry, we've got your seat ready. I don't follow. Mary gave a satisfied smile and walked off to rejoin the crowd. Though I'd only caught fragments of what was said, I couldn't ignore Michelle, who was standing at the corner of the table, her head lowered, her shoulders trembling slightly. What happened? Did she say something to you? Why are you sitting all the way out here? No, it's nothing. I guess things really are different in the big company for someone like me, a high school grad. It seems there's no seat here. Mary was in charge of organizing the event. I see. So that's why she held back until now. She was planning this all along. I gently placed a handkerchief in Michelle's hand and helped her sit down. Resolving myself, I made a phone call, then headed from the edge of the banquet hall toward the crowded stage area. I wasn't sure if this would help Michelle, but I couldn't let personal feelings get in the way. A company where kind people are forced to endure unfair treatment isn't a place I can believe in. Rattle. Wait. Is that Edward and the Vice President, Mr. Hughes? What are they doing at the banquet? The room buzzed for a moment, but the head of HR, Edward, took the microphone, and silence fell over the crowd. Apologies for interrupting the banquet. This announcement was actually scheduled for tomorrow, but well, here we are. Sorry for the sudden news, but we have a personnel announcement to make. Everyone looked stunned as Mr. Hughes took over. This was originally going to be a press announcement, but our president decided it would be more fun to do it here with everyone. The company was well known for the Yates brothers, our spirited president and sharp-eyed vice president, Mr. Hughes. That sharp gaze was now directed at one part of the room. Let's get right to it. Mr. Yates will retire and take on the role of chairman, and a new president will take his place. Mr. Yates, if you're moving up the schedule, we'll need a proper inaugural speech. No way. The room was still stunned, but a stifled gasp escaped from our product development department at the far end of the hall. Michelle was clutching her handkerchief, her eyes wide with shock. Samuel, everyone, sorry to interrupt your lively banquet. As of the 1st of next month, I will be assuming the role of company president. I'm Samuel Yates. I bowed, prompting a round of hesitant applause. Sighing, I thought to myself that while my 10 years of field experience had been valuable, I might have needed more practice with speeches like these. Formality doesn't suit me well, I suppose. Well, as you know, our company has grown from humble beginnings, expanded through generations, and adapted to the times thanks to the strong bond we have with our employees. Do not create people who cannot be happy. This is the belief passed down from our founder, encompassing all those connected to our company. I intend to uphold this legacy. After a round of applause, I looked over at Michelle. She had her handkerchief pressed to her mouth, her eyes even wider as she looked at me. As much as I wanted to go to her, I knew it wasn't the time. Instead, I mouthed the words to her, hoping she would understand later. Once the banquet was over and everyone had returned to their rooms, I sat down in the deserted courtyard, thinking back. I realized I hadn't told her where to meet. Maybe it didn't work out. Hey, just as I started to gaze at the moon, lost in thought, someone smacked my shoulder from behind, practically knocking me off balance. It was Michelle. Honestly, I've been looking all over for you. Just saying later isn't exactly clear, you know. Right, good point, I said. Michelle, adjusting her slightly rumpled clothes, sat down beside me. She must have searched everywhere. Feeling a bit guilty, I was also a little flustered by her different look tonight, her hair down and more relaxed. Here, coffee, she said. Wait, you bought this for me. Oh, thank you. When I think of you, I think of coffee. Today, I'll join you. We both opened cans of coffee, different from the usual kind. I wasn't sure where to start, but somehow, sitting next to Michelle under a different night sky felt perfectly natural. So, you're the president, huh? I never thought it was worth mentioning, but I guess I surprised you, huh? Her words caught me off guard. What part? What did she mean? I was just doing my job as usual, getting teased for being the old guy and all. Was there something off about me? To me? Yes, completely. You're really, truly a wonderful person. Wonderful. I blurted out, and Michelle looked at me with a warm smile. Was it the moonlight or her different look? She had a captivating elegance to her beauty tonight. I thought you were quiet, but you easily stepped in to help someone like me. You always lend a hand before I get overwhelmed, and when I do a good job, you make sure to praise me. The one time you patted my head, I was so embarrassed, I had to run away. So she had been embarrassed that night. I couldn't sleep after patting her head. It had been such an impulsive, happy gesture. I guess I was really lucky to have her around. What? Oh, nothing. Anyway, if the president catches a cold, it'll be trouble. Let's head back. As Michelle stood up quickly, she wobbled, and I instinctively caught her. Sorry, my flip-flop strap. Are you okay? Take a seat and relax. Hey Samuel, I can do it myself. I gently guided Michelle back down and knelt in front of her. I took off her flip-flop and adjusted the strap. I was usually good at fixing things like this. The design was simple enough that it was easy to adjust, right? But I couldn't help but notice Michelle's feet. I tried to focus solely on the flip-flop, but suddenly my fingers started to fumble, thrown off by a surge of nerves. All done. Can you try that now, Michelle? No response. Maybe she thought I was creepy after all. I probably didn't even need to squat down in front of her like that. I'd acted hastily. Could you put them on for me? What? I couldn't believe my ears. My feet fell asleep. Could you help me put them on, Samuel? Okay. I gently lifted her foot, carefully slipping the strap between her toes so it wouldn't catch. Hey, it tickles. Her soft, breathy tone made my heart race. It was a relief that the moon had hidden itself. I was probably making the most ridiculous face right now. When I stole a quick glance at her face, I thought I saw a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I ended up spending a sleepless night after that, with the sudden schedule change and the prep meeting for the press conference. The team from HQ had me up and running from the morning. Seth, can I have a quick break? What? After all the accommodations I've made for you, you're following my lead for a while now. Oh, and it's Mr. Hughes. Unable to match his intense gaze, my company retreat came to an end, and my new life began. Clank. When I came back, now every turning point seemed to happen with a coffee from this vending machine. What are you standing there daydreaming about? Our new president, Mr. Yates? Ouch, madam, that hurts. When I arrived at work and bought my usual coffee from the vending machine, there she was, the madam, elegantly wearing her work uniform. This madam was none other than Amanda, the lady who'd brought the sugary dumplings. She'd known me since I was a kid, so honestly, I couldn't talk back to her, even if I tried. So why are you in the product development department? The press conference is over, isn't it? I still have a few projects to wrap up, along with the handover. I'll be balancing both roles for the rest of the month, another 2 weeks still. Same as always, You might want to find yourself a wife while you're at it. That might have been the loudest I've spoken since becoming an adult. Both my dad and my uncle had told me that if things kept going this way, they'd set up an arranged marriage for me. Honestly, I'd like to avoid that. I'm not interested. Anyway, time to get back to work. I hurried back to the office. I would have liked to take my time, but that wasn't an option. As expected, my environment had changed drastically. Good morning, Mr. Yates. Oh, you're sweating. Let me get you a handkerchief. Morning. Mary. No, really, I'm fine. I'm so thrilled to hear that you'll be staying in this department until the end of the month. Working with you is truly a dream come true. I'm so grateful to be at this company, and you're so dashing as our new president, don't you think? When my uncle arranged for me to work at various branches and subsidiaries, he was adamant that no one mention my role as the next president. I didn't mind one way or the other, so I followed his instructions. It's not as though Yates is an uncommon name, and no one connected me with the president. Only now did I fully understand why he'd insisted on that. It was astonishing how much people could change. Mr. Yates, how about dinner together before you leave the department? Good morning. I heard the sound of a chair sliding back from the adjacent desk in a quieter than usual greeting. Oh, can't you take a hint? High school grad. Good morning, Michelle. Mary, let's get to work. Time just flies when I'm chatting with you, Mr. Yates. I'll be back again soon, I said, seeing Michelle again for the first time since the company retreat. I couldn't help feeling a bit nervous. I wondered if she was really okay after everything that happened. Would it be awkward to bring it up? Michelle. Oh, should I start calling you Mr. Yates too? I'd rather you keep calling me the way you always have. Oh, thank goodness. I was really worried about what to do. Okay, let's have a great day, Samuel. There were still some people who hadn't changed. I felt a deep sense of relief that Michelle was one of them. Even though everything else had changed, some things remained the same. Michelle had brought me lunch again today. I felt a little embarrassed realizing I'd bought an unsweetened coffee, hoping she would. Wow, this looks amazing. So lavish. Yes, I put extra effort into it as a thank you. A thank you. We both paused, our chopsticks frozen in midair. Memories of that day came rushing back. Was my face turning red? Thank you for what you did at the company retreat. I never properly thanked you. It meant a lot that you came over to check on me. I was feeling pretty low. All I did was show up. I couldn't really do anything. No, just having you there made all the difference. If I'd been able to help her in any way, I was truly glad. Still, even though her words made me happy, I couldn't shake an odd feeling of unease. Maybe it was because she took out that handkerchief from her bag, her eyes welling up with tears. Here, I'm returning your handkerchief, and today's lunch is the last one. Oh, okay. I put all my gratitude into this one, as well as thanks for everything up until now. Just leave the empty box on your desk when you're done. I have a conference room to set up. The words I wanted to say were stuck, unable to come out. Too many thoughts were getting in the way. Was it because I was becoming the president, or the age difference? She gave me that radiant smile this morning, and now it felt like it was slipping away. Thank you for everything. I enjoyed lunch with you. In these 10 years, I'd been to countless places, meeting people and parting ways. At times it felt lonely, but my mind would quickly shift to preparing for my next post. It had become second nature. 10 years is a long time, and yet this bond, this brief time we shared, was ending so easily, leaving me unexpectedly shaken. What words was I searching for? What was I thinking? I finished my work in the development department earlier than planned and fully transitioned to my role as president. This should do. Some employees may end up in unexpected positions, but based on my interviews with Stephen, they have high potential. They'll have strong mentors as well. This is how we'll proceed. Are you sure about this? Announcing that the final decision on personnel changes came directly from Mr. Yates. I'd had experience with most roles here, so I was confident in assessing resilience. Besides, I'd rather take on the tough decisions right at the start. For my first major task as president, I chose to implement a large-scale personnel reshuffle. Thankfully, most people supported it, and I aimed to create an environment where everyone could maximize their potential. But I knew it wouldn't be that simple. There would undoubtedly be objections, and I was prepared to face those as well, especially from the product development department. Despite Stephen, the department head, being on board, there would likely be some resentment directed my way. I was genuinely surprised when I heard the news. Is that really true, Stephen? Apparently, after speaking with other employees, Stephen discovered that Mary had been taking credit for Michelle's accomplishments. It was, in essence, a case of stealing her work. Since I'd been around and mostly tied to my desk, Mary had escalated her passive-aggressive remarks and increased her attacks. Stephen felt strongly about ensuring Michelle's talents weren't overlooked. Mary, who had previous experience in sales, was transferred to another department. I was sure I'd be resented for this, but if it meant Michelle could work freely and confidently, that was all that mattered to me. Busy days continued while I still got coffee delivered to me. My lunches had turned into having meetings over lunch. At the very least, I wanted to grab one of those usual cans of coffee and those homemade lunches. Clank. Samuel, you holding up as president. Will you ever learn to knock? Mr. Yates, look at you talking back to your father when I came to give you praise. He was definitely just bored, Or maybe he'd run out of ideas and came by to take a break. I heard the personnel changes were going well, especially in the product development department. There's that girl. She was one of our few hires without a college degree. I even interviewed her myself. It's wonderful to see how much she's grown. What now that I think about it, Mr. Hughes did mention something like that. I must have brushed it off, too busy to pay attention. It must be about Michelle. I wanted to congratulate her. If her desk was right next to me, I wanted to tell her I was proud or joke that I'd make her lunch to celebrate. Samuel? Yes? Can you really make her happy? And here I was, on the product development floor. It's rare for a president to come down just to meet with one employee. I knew that, but even if it was a brief time, I worked here too. I could keep it casual, stay calm, and relax. I hope I'm not intruding. Wait, what? Not a single person was at their desk. I glanced at the whiteboard. It was marked for an all-hands meeting. Relief washed over me, and my shoulders dropped along with my president mask. I bought a can of coffee from the vending machine, slumping into a nearby chair. What am I even doing? What? As I turned around, startled, there stood Michelle. I quickly sat up straight, pretending nothing had happened, but Michelle's amused smile made my mind go blank. Mr. Yates, what brings you here? Oh, right, I'm the president now. I really am the president. I just felt like having one of these coffees. So, how have you been? I hear you've been doing an incredible job. Actually, I'm still a work in progress. With all the studying for certifications, I'm just barely managing. And well, I'm on standby, so I should head back to my desk now. Excuse me. It's not about the coffee. When Michelle called me Mr. Yates, it threw me off balance. She was right here, yet it felt like she was somewhere far away. I could feel her trying to put distance between us, and I didn't want a repeat of that last time when things were left unsaid. I just wanted to congratulate you. I'm really proud to see all your hard work being recognized. Just one more step. Remember what my father told me, to make sure I could create happiness in my life. Are you free tonight? There's this famous Italian restaurant. When you showed me that inn's website, I noticed you had it bookmarked. I thought maybe you wanted to go. How about it? I looked her straight in the eyes, determined not to look away as I spoke. To anyone else, this must have been quite a sight. Michelle looked down. I'd seen her bow her head like this a few times before, sometimes when she was crying, and other times when she was laughing uncontrollably. Thank you for inviting me. I'd be happy to join you. She kept her head down, but she agreed. We formally exchanged contact information and parted ways with a slight bow. Looking back, we'd never even exchanged numbers because seeing each other every day felt so natural. What do I want to say to her tonight? I have a reservation under Samuel, arriving a little early. I kept running through how I'd start the conversation. It should have been simple, like when we eat lunch together, but it wasn't coming easily. This place was even trendier than I'd imagined. Though I'd invited her, I was a bit nervous about actually getting a reservation. But Madam, who had seen the whole thing unfold, stepped in. In no time, she'd made the reservation. Then she gave me a solid smack on the back, saying, "Show her what you're made of." She still hasn't read the message. If Michelle were going to cancel, she'd definitely let me know. That's just the kind of person she is. Even if she was running late, I knew she'd let me know. Just to be sure, I told the staff I'd step out to look around for a moment. Maybe that image of her as always reliable was something I'd built up in my head. After all, she hadn't seemed that enthusiastic, but I chose to trust the Michelle I'd come to know so well, which meant something might have happened, something that could be stopping her from contacting me. Wandering around aimlessly wouldn't help. If she walked here from the station, I'd start by retracing that path. The area was already pitch dark, even though it was near the office district. There were plenty of side streets and risky spots. When I was trying to shake off the unsettling thoughts, I heard a muffled voice. Michelle. Damn it. You said we wouldn't get caught. A group of masked men had surrounded Michelle, one of them covering her mouth with his hand. Michelle was crying, struggling in their grasp. Hey, what do we do about this guy? Fine. Right. I heard this guy livid. All right then. One of them swung a bat in one hand, clearly intending to come my way. You're not just passing through, are you? This has nothing to do with you, old man. Move, Michelle, don't worry. I'll get you out of this. At that moment, one of the men threw a punch to my stomach. Hey, what? Believe it or not, I'm a company president, so I'll be exercising my right to self-defense from here. Basic self-defense skills may seem simple, but they're no joke when backed by solid training. Brute force doesn't stand a chance. The others froze as soon as I took down the first guy, making it easy to put the rest of them out one by one. Hey, old man. What are you going to do if something happens to this chick? Ouch, she bit me. Samuel, nicely done. After dealing with the last guy, I hurried over to Michelle. It seemed she hadn't been hurt. I placed my jacket over her shoulders and gently wiped away her tears with a handkerchief. Michelle, are you okay? Samuel, I was so scared. It's all right now. I'm here. You're safe. I placed the handkerchief in her hand and slowly turned around. Maybe this was all my fault. I was prepared to be resented, but I had underestimated the situation. I'd overlooked the fact that sometimes pride can blind people completely. No way. Michelle seemed unable to grasp what was happening. Of course, she couldn't. Is that what they call the art of kingship? Even your self-defense skills are impeccable, Mr. Yates. Was the sales department really so unbearable? Mary, are these guys friends of yours? Just some idiots I found online. Illuminated by the occasional headlights of passing cars, Mary stood there in her perfectly styled makeup, a fitted suit, and her short hair blowing in the breeze. Mary, this can't be real, right? Just because you don't like me, you do something like this. This kind of thing. You said this kind of thing, don't you get it? I hate you so much it makes me want to do this. You wouldn't understand, right? Just a high school grad, so you wouldn't know. You're just lucky, just young and cute. You'd never understand my struggles. This wasn't her usual sarcasm. With eyes wide and her voice almost like a curse, Mary continued. I wanted to be in the product development department. That's why I worked so hard in sales, did everything I could, and finally won the transfer. But then you came along. Being a high school grad, you needed everyone's help, got praise for just doing the basics. And on top of it all, I got assigned to a project team. Before me, a high school grad like you. Her breathing was heavy, her words echoing in the darkness. And in that moment, I realized I was clenching my own lips tightly, but the words were already spilling out of my mouth. Enough that both Mary and Michelle flinched at my shout, but I couldn't stop now. Mary, what have you even been looking at when it comes to Michelle? Did you see her just sitting around or simply trying to charm people? She came in early, stayed late, and earned her certifications, doing everything she could to get up to speed. She's still working to improve her skills. Everyone noticed, and that's why people were drawn to her. They recognized her hard work. So what? She's still a worthless high school grad. Why should I have to lose to someone like her? You didn't lose to Michelle. You lost to your own pride. You became so fixated on being the elite that you blinded yourself. You couldn't stand stumbling in the place you once admired, so you clung to your one advantage, your education, to demean Michelle and shield your pride. But that's not strength. Just as I was saying all this, Michelle tugged on my arm from behind. Let me say something, Samuel. Without saying a word, I offered Michelle my shoulder and took a small step back. Her tears had dried, and she was looking at Mary with a sharp, determined gaze. Oh, if you're calling the police, get on with it. Seems like those punks ran off without anyone noticing. I don't like you either, Mary. Honestly, I'd be creeped out if you did. Yes, but I used to like you. I almost blurted out what, in surprise. Mary seemed just as stunned, her face momentarily frozen in shock. I remember on the day of my interview, I was so nervous in my high school uniform. I felt everyone staring at me, and I kept worrying that I'd fail. I felt awful. But then someone spoke to me, saying, "Just smile. You'll be fine." You only said it in passing, but you looked so confident, so elegant. You were the kind of strong, beautiful adult woman I admired. I see, but it seems that person isn't around anymore. Mary, you must know where she went, don't you? What's your point? Michelle straightened her back, glaring at Mary with newfound determination. I want to meet that person I looked up to again. So, Mary, challenge me. I'll win, and no matter what, I'll find her again. I'm sure I'll beat you now. Beating you will be easy. The silence was absolute. I could no longer see Mary's expression. I couldn't see Michelle's face either, but I could tell she was standing her ground with everything she had. Arrogant women are such a pain, Mary muttered softly. Without another glance back, she walked away. As soon as she was out of sight, Michelle collapsed. Michelle. I caught her in my arms. Finally able to see her face, she had a look that was both sad and resolute, but there was also a smile. I guess I really did declare a war there, Samuel. I'm starving. Do you realize you just shaved years off my life? Oh, Samuel, you're strong. I thought you were really cool, you know, she said with a grin, her usual bright smile back. I was so relieved that I hadn't lost her, and that she was still here, calling me Samuel with that same warmth. Without realizing it, I tightened my grip around her. Thank you, Samuel. Even as president, even with so much distance between us, you still came to help me. I thought I was just another employee to you. That's not true at all. If that were the case, I wouldn't have gotten so nervous just going to buy a can of coffee. Laughing, I made sure to take her to the hospital just in case. As soon as she got into the taxi, Michelle drifted off to sleep, her head resting against my shoulder. I couldn't blame her. After everything that had happened, she must have been exhausted. Hearing her say, "Samuel," with a smile, seeing her peaceful face asleep on my shoulder, I knew I wanted to protect her from now on, no matter what. The weight that had been hanging over my heart felt as if it was finally lifting. The southern sky was beginning to brighten. 6 months later. The months had flown by as I went on back-to-back overseas trips. I'd been back for 3 days now, and was still buried in follow-up documents. I was starting to realize just how impressive my father really was. As for the company, things were going smoothly, at least for now. The product development department's results were impressive. Projects aimed at international markets from the start were also progressing well. A strong new hire with international experience had joined the sales department, which made a big difference. They were collaborating seamlessly. Michelle's chance to meet the person she admired was surely drawing close. As for me, I'd gotten more used to being called Mr. Yates, though I couldn't say if I'd gained any real sense of authority. Because right now, all I wanted was my usual can of coffee. Taking breaks is part of the job. Muttering this self-made motto, I dodged sharp glances from others and headed toward my usual vending machine. I hadn't seen Michelle since that day. It felt ridiculous that, after swearing to protect her, I hadn't been able to follow through. What would I say if I saw her now? No, I had to admit it. The coffee was just an excuse. I needed to accept that I genuinely wanted to see her. Thud. Oh, sorry. Acting like a proper president, I see. Lost in thought, I'd walked right into someone. It was Madame Amanda. Wait, where was the vending machine? Oh, that machine. We moved it. The baby president here kept drinking coffee from it, so it's now up on the executive floor. Didn't you notice? I'll be heading back then. My excuse was officially gone. I'd even been considering asking her to dinner if I happened to see her here. This isn't working. The whole approach is wrong. I can go ahead and risk everything, even if it means crashing and burning. The weight that was holding me back has lifted. Now it's up to her. Ah, Samuel. Mr. Yates. There she was, standing by the vending machine with our usual can of coffee in hand. Since you left our department, this coffee has become something of a routine for me. Then today, Madam told me it had been moved here. I was speechless. I don't know, but drinking this makes me feel ready to give my all. Maybe it's like my version of Samuel now. Oh, that sounds weird, doesn't it? It really does sound weird. Haha. I walked up to her, took the can gently from her hand, and said, "For me, this coffee was just an excuse to see you. Sure, I like the coffee, but without the chance to meet you, it just lost its meaning. And now I don't know what to do. I have an excuse now, too. I'll come here for lunch to get a coffee every day. Maybe I'll even bring a lunch." It was time to be the kind of man who could make her happy. Even if it had taken half a year to get here, even if I'm just an older guy, I'll do my best to make you happy. I've been happy ever since that day. She made me laugh, tears in her eyes and a radiant smile. I wrapped her in an embrace, and we bought another coffee together. To be honest, I don't remember what we talked about. It felt just like those times we'd spent together at lunch. Simple, ordinary, and incredibly happy. Ha! Now that's a legendary secretary. Who else could pull off matchmaking with a vending machine? It's all for the company. Work isn't something you do alone, you know. Even if someone at the top stands alone, they can't be alone at heart. Wait a minute. Are you saying you set it up till I'd meet my wife? Now, back to cleaning. Why do we work? This may be an eternal question we're all tasked with answering. For family, for pride, for retirement, or just to get through today. There's no wrong answer, so there's no single answer. For me, it's always been for the employees, no questions asked. But now I have a new reason. It's for family. I'm sure that as time goes on, there will be even more reasons. Some may be painful too. But I want to think of each reason as part of my happiness, because gaining more reasons to keep going means I'm living life earnestly.